So, welcome everyone to the Be Illuminated podcast and the Be Priestess YouTube channel. I'm here today with my friend Melody LeBaron. And Melody is a professional organizer, space clearing practitioner, Feng Shui consultant, and success coach. The question Melody helps her clients answer is, in how many ways can the spaces you live and work in support your greater success? For decades, Melody's clients have cleared their homes and lives of everything that isn't serving them, and then created order and beauty so that they can experience the success they deserve and become the leaders the world needs. The oldest of 7 children, Melody has been creating order and beauty out of chaos since she was a little girl and began organizing for others in her 20s. Clients call her the House Whisperer because she senses the subtle energies that need to be cleared and how each space longs to support those who live and work there. Melody's training in Feng Shui and space clearing have taught her what she always knew as an organizer. When we partner mindfully with the spaces we live and work in, we increase the flow of abundance, health, and joy in our lives. So, welcome, Melody. I'm so happy to see you, and I want to add my own little personal thing here. Melody is one of my best friends. She is my teacher, my mentor, my learning partner in our priestess work, which we apprentice together. And she is so incredible. I also apprenticed with Melody in space clearing, and she really made me a believer because we would go through homes and inevitably I would say, "This is what I'm feeling." And she'd say, "Yep." And so just that kind of confirmation that you get when you work with another person and to validate what your experience is so cool. And so I'm really excited to have Melody. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yay, thank you. So in the past episodes of my podcast, which are very few, I have stuck to a kind of script. And I am, after a few months off, ready to just sort of flip that script and let it go. May come back to it here and there, ask a few questions off of it. But for now, I want to show you Melody's book. Let's see. Can you see that, Melody, on your screen? I just want to make sure it's showing up. So Melody has written a fantastic, fantastic book called Transforming Death, Creating Sacred Space for the Dying. And I've leaned in on her shoulders through the death of my mother, the death of my horse, which may have been as hard or harder as my mother's death. She has such great advice, so I strongly recommend that you buy this book and gift it freely to people who are going through this sort of transformation from life to death. All right, so today we're going to talk about Feng Shui, and I'm just going to let you talk, Melody, unless I have a question that pops up. Okay,
Well,
so
well,
it's all
thank
you.
you. And thank you for that introduction. And I do want to say, because, when people find out that I've written a book about death, as my first book, they're like, "Really? Because you work with spaces?" But yes, I do. And 30 some years ago, my mother was dying. And so I brought to bear everything I knew about creating sacred space and releasing from the room, her bedroom. She was able to die at home, everything that did not support the dying process. And there's the physical process of dying. So the room has to support that. But there's also the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual processes, or I call it the departing process. And the room can support all of those. So in all of my work, whether it's I'm helping someone get decades of clutter out of their house, or I'm feng shuiing or space clearing, in all of my work, we start with the premise that you have a relationship with your home and the land it sits on. And that relationship is either raising your mood and energy level or lowering it. And so I have some evaluations that I have my clients do to help assess the form of their home, the function of their home and workspace, and the feeling and the flow of chi. And then we address those things. Now, if there's a problem with the flow of chi, if opportunity or life force seems to be getting stuck or not really coming in, you need a space clearing. If there's clutter or items that drop your attention, your mood, you need to do some decluttering and organizing. And then once those are done, comes what I feel like is the most fun part, which is the part about really partnering deeply with the space, which is Feng Shui. Yeah. And so I'm going to just ask you, B, because we did this together. I did a space clearing in your home and we did some Feng Shui. What was that first session, like 5-6 years ago now?
Um, it was
2015?
2014. So
14.
I think it was 2014. So almost 8 years ago, because I think you came in the summer. So yeah,
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. So our lives are always hopefully growing and evolving. And most people have a really flat, cartoonish way that they think about their homes and the land on which their homes sit.
Mhm.
Um, it's a very Western paradigm where you move in to a new space. You may change the wall color, you may change the flooring, you might hang your own art, you place your furniture, and you get it the way it's attractive to you. And then it just goes dead to you. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you and I have a different experience. And I think you share this with me that from being a child, you were always, always aware of the power of the nature, the power of the land. And you are living on the land you grew up on.
Yeah, that has really been powerful. I talk to my house, like when I'm gone and I come home, I pet the doorways and I'm like, "Hi, I'm home. Hope everything's okay. How are you feeling?" You know, and I just, I walk through and it's like a dog or something. I just say hi to everything, not just the house, but like the piano and the dresser and the bed,
Right.
everything. One of
And
the things, I'm sorry, I'm going to say one more thing. I read this book called Behaving as If All Life Matters, as if the God in All Life Matters by Michelle Small Wright. And that was long before I met you, but it really transformed the way I thought about spaces because she says everything that you create is a garden. So the room you're in, everything, it doesn't have to be filled with plants.
I love that book as well. And so one thing that we need to sort of consider is that, and I've been very blessed to have many Indigenous teachers from around the world. Um, and so I'm going to share what they shared with me, but in a more uh, left brain way. And that is that everything that is created is made up. Think about the periodic table we learned about in school. Everything that is created is made up of elements. And there is intelligence singing through all of those elements. So when you think about the elements that make up the walls, the floors, the furnishings, the artwork in your home, they're the same elements in the periodic table that make up your physical body. So for me, the body of the home and the physical body are to be loved and respected. And just like you were describing, like cherished and talked to. And we also need to recognize that, that there is intelligence singing through the body of our home, just like there is intelligence singing through the physical body. So we know that everything physical will have a lifespan, whether it's a brick wall or a house or a person or an animal. Everything has a lifespan. And yet there's something that will continue to exist after and in between all of those phases of what we know as a lifespan. There's intelligence singing through it. And so for me to get in touch with the intelligence that is inside the body of my home, or I call it the spirit of the home. And some people are confused by this and they're like, what do you mean, the spirit of my home? And I just asked them, well, if we were outside walking in nature in your favorite place, maybe it's at the ocean, we're walking along the beach, we hear the waves coming in, maybe we're hiking in the mountains, maybe we're on a trail through a desert area, but wherever that favorite place, your power place would be in nature, if I were to turn to you and ask, do you believe that nature is alive, intelligent? What would you tell me? And most people will say, oh yeah, nature is alive. Nature has its own intelligence. And then when I ask, do you believe that nature is aware of us? A good 80% of people today will say yes. Now, when I first started asking these questions in my classes 30 years ago, and I would ask, do you believe that this intelligence in nature is aware of us? Unless people were indigenous, most Westerners said, what? Or no. But now the answer is 80% of people say yes. And I think that just shows that our consciousness is returning to something that's a little more practical. So that book, Behaving as if the God in all things mattered, or I would say the spirit in all things mattered, is just absolutely brilliant. And I highly recommend it for people who are interested in up-leveling the way their homes function and feel and their workspaces. So, so the first step when we want to think about Feng Shui is not just imposing your will on the space, but actually creating a deeper partnership for yourself and the body and spirit of the home and the body and spirit of the land. And from my perspective, the ancient technology of Feng Shui gives us the best and easiest way to do that. So Feng Shui literally means wind and water, which according to the ancient cultures in Chinese were the two strongest, most powerful forces. Now, if you think about the Grand Canyon in the United States, and you think about the interaction between water and earth, we can see that water is stronger than earth. And of course, we've got wind in Feng Shui as well. And so these very strong elements, which can also be gentle, you know, Feng Shui is like saying in its very name that we want to partner with these elements. Not, it's the ancient system of Feng Shui was never designed to impose our will. It was designed as a partnership. So Bettina, I sent you my Bagua, and if we can look at that now, I'm going to sort of take our viewers through how to understand your land and your home from the perspective of partnering well with the elements.
Okay.
So I consider the Feng Shui Bagua, which it just is another word for energy grid or map, I consider the Feng Shui Bagua to be this grid that shows us where on our land and in our home we can work with what's there and boost up certain things and mitigate for other things in order to really get a good result, in order to partner well. Now, the Chinese depict the Bagua as an octagon.
I don't know why it's highlighted, Melody. I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
Well, don't worry about it. Just
Okay.
the front, the first page, the Bagua is good, and that's
There.
fine.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. So, so one of the things you notice is that I've depicted the Bagua as a square. Actually, I worked with a graphic designer who did this for me. I asked her to do it as a square because it's easier for the simpler Western mind to understand a square than an octagon. And so here it is as a square, but please know that the Bagua is an energy grid like an acupuncture chart that widens or elongates to fit the dimensions of the body, of the home or the land that we're looking at it through. So it's a system like acupuncture, like reflexology, acupressure, traditional Chinese medicine. All of these technologies come from the understanding of the 5 elements, which are water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And so if you look at the very top of each one of these individual squares, and each of these guas or squares represents a staging area of your life. And each of them needs a certain element to really give it the power and strength that it needs to function well for you in that staging area. So I liken these guas to the members of the board of directors of your life. So as you look at these guas, and the entrance always is at the lower end. So if your entrance if the front door of your home, and we're talking the door that the architect intended to be the front door, which in Feng Shui we call the mouth of Qi, or the place where opportunity comes while you're living there. If your mouth of Qi on your home, your front door, is in the center of the front of your house, which I think, Bettina, it is in yours. Is that right?
Well, sort of. Yeah. My house is weird because it's actually 2 houses with a room that attaches them. But the front door with the porch roof over it is in the career and life path Gua.
Okay.
It's just sort of here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. As long as it's in the center, we would consider it to be in the career life path Gua. And if you look at the top of that square, you will see that it's a yin water area. Yin meaning more receptive versus yang, which means more active. So we've got 1 water Gua in the house, the center of the front. We've got 1 fire Gua, which is the center of the back. We've got 2 wood element areas, which are the top left-hand corners of the home, and 2 metal guas or areas, which are the bottom right-hand corners. And then diagonally across from lower left to top right, we've got 3 earth guas. And so the first thing we do in a Feng Shui consultation is we superimpose the floor, the Bagua, and we elongate it or widen it, but we look to see, are there any missing corners? Are there any missing areas? And then we look at, when we go inside, does each one of these guas or areas have what it needs? And obviously in the wood element guas, Wood furniture is wonderful. Art with wood frames is fantastic. There's all kinds of ways, including color, that you can bring in the wood element. And you'll see those little 4 dots in the top left square for each gua. And those are the colors that really activate those different elements.
I have a question I would like to ask, and it's just a personal question. Since my house was built as 2 separate houses, but we're treating it as one,
Wow.
how would I use the gua over my whole house, or would I use the, like,
Over the whole house.
okay.
Yeah. Over the whole house. Yeah. And if you have 2 or more stories, like if there's 2 floors, you would superimpose the bagua over each, right? But
And
if,
the entrance to the space, the front door is the front door. Like if your steps go up and come out some other place other than where your front door comes into your home, you still orient the second or third floor to your actual front entry, correct?
well, that in primary feng shui, yes. And there's also something we call secondary feng shui, and I'll cover that in just a
Okay.
bit. Yeah. So yeah, so what I recommend, and this is actually on my website, transformingspace.com. So people can go and they can print this off. And I just recommend, I mean, years ago when I first learned about feng shui, and I'm just going to take our viewers back to that moment, because I had been, yeah, I'm just going to reveal like my not humble self, because I had been an organizer for decades. I've been organizing since I was babysitting for not my siblings. At age 12, I got to like earn money for my babysitting. And so when the kids would go to sleep, I would go in the kitchen and alphabetize the spices, and we didn't have a TV at home, so I wasn't used to watching TV, and I would just find things to organize. So the moms loved me, and I was booked a year in advance for babysitting. So, so, you know, in spite of those decades of working in people's homes and recognizing, seeing every single time with every single client, that changes that we made to get rid of clutter and to get organized automatically up-leveled their mood, their attention levels, their energy levels. You know, I saw this daily, but the very first time I read a magazine article, this is going back about 20 some years ago now, about 25 years ago, I read that you can change things around in your home and bring a color here or an item there, and you can change what happens in your life. And I just laughed out loud, threw the article down, threw the magazine down, and I was just like, that's ridiculous. And that's arrogant, right? It came from another culture that I wasn't used to. It used terminology I had a hard time pronouncing, and I was just so dismissive of it, right? And but a few days later, and at this time I was a single mom, and finances were really challenging. And so a few days later, I was really pressed, and I didn't know how I was going to feed us and pay all the bills that month. And I thought, you know, when I was growing up, my dad's a scientist, and he would always say to us, girls, if you want to prove if something is true or false, you've got to experiment. And I was hearing that refrain in my mind, and I thought, all right, you know what? Where's that article? I'm going to do an experiment. And so I got the article out and I looked at what it said to do for the prosperity and abundance Gua or area. And I thought, okay, I don't have a lot of money to make a lot of things happen. So, and one of the things, you know, that it was the laundry room in that apartment. And it just, you know, it's not very good to have 2 white appliances in a, yeah, water element. It wasn't too bad, but the appliance color and just metal in the wood element area. And so I thought, well, I can't really afford to go out and buy something, but I had red construction paper. So I cut out red triangles, and in Feng Shui, the triangle shape and the red color represent the fire element, and fire mitigates too much metal. And so I taped these construction paper red triangles on the front of the washer and the dryer. And my little girl's like, Mom, what are you doing? What are you doing with my construction paper in the laundry room? And I was just like, I'm doing an experiment, honey. She just laughed at me, and I was laughing too. I really didn't expect anything. And the other thing it said is just to write down your intentions. And so I wrote down my intentions that month I could pay the bills. So a few days later, after I had done the red construction paper, I get some unexpected money. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then a couple of days after that, I got the word that I had received a scholarship, which was the equivalent of thousands of dollars. And at that point, I was like, where's the article? Let me do some more. Let me do some more of this experimenting. So that is kind of my first experience with Feng Shui. Now, I will say that my first ever hiring a Feng Shui consultant wasn't the best option. In China, form school Feng Shui is what is used in most areas, but there is an area of China that borders the Gobi Desert, and Feng Shui in that area became very oriented around the compass. Because if your doorway faced north and you walked out the doorway and got a mouthful of sand in your eyes blowing in off the desert, that became considered very inauspicious to have a doorway facing north. And the whole system of compass school Feng Shui is frankly very, very superstitious, and most form school Feng
That
Shui.
is one of the things that I've had the hardest time with regards to feng shui, is that I'm a Western woman. I have to figure out exactly where my line is between what's going to be really helpful and what is going to freak me out and I can't fix it. You know,
Right. I mean, well, so
all the superstitions and things.
going back to 1998, I think it was, or 1999, I hired someone. And at that time, I didn't know to ask, are you form school? Are you compass? Well, she happened to be compass school. I was living in an apartment building during the divorce. And she came to the door, knocked on the door, and came in with such alarm, because there was the number 7 in my apartment building number, not my apartment number, but the building number. And she said, you're going to have to get this legally changed, or you're going to have terrible, terrible luck. And I said, oh dear, why is that? I never heard this about the number 7. And she said, well, in Chinese, the word for 7 rhymes with the Chinese word for death. And I said, does it make a difference that in English
It rhymes with heaven.
rhymes with heaven? Well, she was not amused. she was not amused at all. And she said, no, you're going to have to get this legally changed. And I said, well, I'm going to be here a year. I don't think that's really going to even be possible. Anyway, that was one of her recommendations. And it was just all of this very superstitious stuff. I was supposed to find a bamboo flute and hang it with a red cord in a corner of the ceiling. And, honestly, if we lived in China, I might have tried to change that number. If we lived in China, I might have had centuries of belief about what that bamboo flute hanging from the red cord was doing in the corner of the ceiling. But we don't live in China. And so I did some more research, and eventually worked with, my Feng Shui teacher lived in China, and had Chinese teachers, form school teachers, and brought back what I consider the essence of Feng Shui. When you go back, whatever, some people believe 7,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, other people believe that the technology of Feng Shui became well known and used in China. I don't know that they were worried about numbers and bamboo flutes. So after a Feng Shui consult with me, your home is not going to look like a Chinese restaurant. You're not going to have things that you don't have a good association for hanging from the ceiling or displayed anywhere. What we do in the kind of Feng Shui I do is we look at how the qi is flowing. We look at what elements are needed to boost the guas. And we look at that, we look at the Bagua, and we look especially at those four exterior corners of the home. And we look at those as almost like trigger points. Like if you had something going on with your liver and you went to the acupuncturist, they would go right to the point that would affect the liver. And those outer guas, those corners, as close as you can get your altar to the corner of the house, just the more power and potency it has.
One thing that I remember you suggesting, or I think I do, that other feng shui experts who I've spoken with disagree with is you said something earlier about missing guas, and you feel like you can do a fix with a missing gua, and you don't necessarily discount outdoor living space. Like you would include a deck or a porch as part of the space of your home, and therefore it could make up the space for a missing gua.
When we have a deck or a living, now in places like Hawaii and Florida, these are used year round, these outdoor living spaces. California, some parts of California, same thing. If we have an outdoor living area and it's only used half of the year or sometimes less than half of the year, we mitigate for that missing gua inside the house, as well as I tell people what to place outside that can bring in the missing element and enhance the space and fill in the space, whether that's a patio, outdoor furniture, candles in some areas, or a water fountain in others, or landscaping, or big rocks. So it just depends on where that missing area is, what we would want to bring in. We have a mutual friend, Raven, who lives in a very old home. And we discovered when I was there a few weeks ago, missing areas on both prosperity and partnership. Well, you don't want to have those as missing areas. And so we talked about some ways that we can bring them in using nature and then using outdoor space. So, and then there's things you can do inside the home for those of us who don't have year-round outdoor living. So yeah, that's a really good point. So
okay. Sorry, I'm totally like, I can't help but think about my own home. So we are missing part of our partnership, Love, Marriage, Gua. And what's there is my husband's shop full of junk. I won't go way into that, but you understand how funny that is.
I do actually.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I was teaching a class at Unity North Atlantis, which is one of the biggest churches in Atlanta. I was teaching a Feng Shui class years ago. I mean, it was a huge class. And I had passed out the Bagua, and I was going into the description of how important these four corners are. These are the trigger points. And I heard this, oh, and everyone looked at the woman and she was well known in the church community. And I said, have you discovered something? And she said, I have a 3-story house. And on each of the 3 stories, I have a toilet in the partnership, love, and marriage area. And I said, tell me about your relationship. And she said, we're getting a divorce. And so have the other people who lived here before us. So did the other people.
Wow.
And that's not uncommon. That is not uncommon because we correspond with our living spaces, even when we don't know, like, the hallways of the home represent the arteries of the body. And when those hallways are clogged, I always ask, does anyone in the home have any cardiovascular issues? It's stunning how many times I hear yes. Or if I see that faucets are leaking and I ask how long it's been that way for a long time, I always ask, well, does anyone living here have any plumbing issues in their body? Does anyone have any issues with kidneys and it's stunning. Like people are like, yeah. And it's just like this lack of, or the lights flicker on and off. There's wiring problems. And I say, does anyone in the home have any nervous disorders? It's stunning how many times people are just unaware that when we live in an area that has a certain issue, we're going to correspond, our body is just going to correspond to that. And so does the body of our relationships. So what I would say about that is let's put an altar that represents your combined intentions, you and your husband, your combined intentions for your relationship. And let's put that in the farthest right corner inside the house.
Yes, we have that.
Okay, good.
Directly inside from where that shop is.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So you've done the first thing. And then you may want to also hang a mirror on one of those 2 walls, the back right wall or the side right wall, right in that corner, to energetically bring in that missing space. And then you also may want to ask Mark, your husband, if there's a spot in the shop that could be cleared off and used as an altar. A shop has to function. Just like, your kitchen is back here in this back part of the house, and your kitchen has to function like a kitchen. But can we clear off a shelf in the shop, and can that area serve as an altar?
That's great. That will be so helpful, I think, for so many people listening to this who are looking at their house and going, oh crap, something's missing and I see how it's working in my life.
Right.
And whether it's family and community or,
I have this great story. So about 15 years ago, I was at church and somebody came running up the hall. It was after the service. I was standing in the foyer talking. Somebody came running up the hall and said, are you the Feng Shui lady? And I said, I do Feng Shui. And she said, well, I'm not in a relationship and I want to be. So I said, okay, when you're standing in the front door of your home, looking into the home, what room is in the far right corner of the house, the back right corner? And she thought for a minute and she said, oh, that's the junk room. And I said, okay. She said, when we move there, that's just all the extra stuff it's just like a room we don't use. And I said, what do you have right in the corner, that outer corner? And she said, oh, a big trash bin. And I said, well, that's your relationship corner. So tell me about your recent relationships. And she said, well, that would be a perfect mirror.
Wow.
So I said, well, if you're going to do one thing, go home and tidy up that room, allow it to serve you in some way. Even if it's just a staging area to declutter, let it serve you well. And please take the trash bin out of the corner. And you may want to write down what you prefer in a relationship and put it right there in the corner. So anyway, a few months later, again, I'm after the service, I'm talking with friends in the foyer, and she comes running up to this group of people I'm talking to with a guy in tow. And she says, Melody, Melody, I cleaned out my relationship corner and look who I found. And the guy I was talking to said, you found him in the corner. So for years, this woman came to my Feng Shui courses because they did get married and they were blending families, and there were some complications with all that. And, you know, these Feng Shui altars need to grow and evolve as your life does. You will be anchoring new intentions in those 9 staging areas. So, I do want to say that I know we're going to post this on our websites and people will be viewing it year round, but we are right now in the first quarter of the year. And actually from the beginning to the end of February is the most powerful, potent time of the year to anchor and activate your intentions. Whether that means you just write them down and tape them on the wall, which I've had people do and get results, or whether you do what you and I have done, which is you write the intentions down and then you find a visual representation of how those intentions, when they are achieved, will actually allow you to feel, how you will function and feel in the world. And then you create that visual representation and place it as an altar. And an altar is simply an item or a group of items that uplifts and uplevels your mood, your attention, your energy level. So I remember years ago, I had an artist friend, and we did a Feng Shui session, and I really admired some of her art. So we did a trade, and part of that was she wanted to gift her boyfriend with a Feng Shui session. And her boyfriend was a car mechanic, an incredibly skeptical left brain guy, which was wonderful because, you know, I orient to the left brain. That's how I start. And so I had to explain to him some of the things I've shared here. And we got to his abundance prosperity corner, which was his back door. And it was his laundry room. And there was a little shelf. And I just said, can we clear off this corner right here by the, you know, back entrance? And can we place something here that represents something you would like to create? And he was like, yeah, I mean, I'm really skeptical about all of this. And I said, well, what would you most like, if you could have anything, like, what would you most, how would you know that Feng Shui was really working? And he named, I don't know, some kind of exotic car. It went right over my head. And I said, well, do you, and I said, well, okay, you're around cars. Do you have a visual representation? He was like, oh, I've got a model. And I said, well, let's put that right here. So we cleaned off the shelf. We created a little altar. We put that exotic model of a car there. And, you know, we finished the Feng Shui thing and went away. I went away. So a few months later, I get a call from a very excited guy who I realize is this car mechanic. And he is explaining to me that the unthinkable has happened, that he has a client who came in and needed his car repaired, but did not have the money to get the repair. And he said, but you know what I do have is back at home in the garage, I have sort of a broken down, whatever this car was. So they go to look at this car. It is the exact color, the exact year of the model, like it's the model in real life. and he knows how to do the repairs. He's happy to make the trade. He repairs the car. He gets this,
His
beautiful.
dream car.
Yeah, he was wildly thrilled. And he said, this is just unbelievable. I was like, not to me. I hear stories like this all the time. So I would recommend that if you've never heard of Feng Shui before, that you just begin to do what I did, when I thought, okay, I need some help. Maybe I'll do an experiment. Do an experiment. Look at those 9 staging areas on the Bagua. See which one needs the most up-leveling in your life. Now, I will say, if you look at that Bagua, you'll see that there are little arrows that connect
I
pairs.
can open it back up again. You were just talking and I did not want to, I wanted to be able to see you. So okay. Oh, wait. I always forget to share the screen. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see those pairs. You'll see that prosperity and abundance connects to helpful friends, compassion, travel. You'll see that partnership, love, and marriage connects to knowledge, wisdom, self-improvement. Family, community, which the Chinese call ancestors, connects to children, projects, and creativity. Why? And career life path connects to fame and reputation. Well, there's a good reason, and I want you to understand that reason. I want you to imagine that each one of these guas is its own intelligence, has its own purpose. And each one of them wants to support that staging area of your life and can do it best in coordination with another. So we've got 9 members of the board of directors of your life. And we've got, let's look at career life path, and let's look at the connection between career life path and fame reputation. One is in the center of the front, one is in the center of the back, one is water, the other is fire. And the career life path, it's way, way, way more than just your career. It represents, is what you do in the world aligned with your soul's purpose? So is your career aligned with your soul's purpose? So many of us are unsatisfied with what we're doing. It doesn't feel aligned with our values. This is the Gua that you can interact with to create that alignment. Now, the center of the back, fame and reputation, career life path, if I would give you one word to describe that, it would be being. This is how you are known, as who you are, like your beingness. The Yang fire Gua at the back of the house is what you are known for doing. So if there are ways in which you want to be known, if you're taking a course of study, you haven't graduated yet, put something in the back here that represents to you graduating, passing the boards or the exams and doing well, and let that area of your home work with you as you're on that achievement track. Now, looking side to side, family, ancestor, community, children, projects, creativity, one represents the past and the other represents the future, and they can work together to create healing. And then we've got love and marriage. We've got that partnership Gua, and then it partners with knowledge, wisdom, self-improvement. This makes so much sense. The wiser we are, the more knowledge we have, the better partners we make. And the more supported we feel in our partnership, the more energy we have for self-improvement. Same kind of relationship between prosperity and abundance and helpful friends, compassion, travel. The more money we're making, the more we can show our compassion in service, in our time, and in our donations, in our money. the more we'll be able to travel. And the more helpful friends we have surrounding us, the more they network for us, the more money we have coming into our lives, the more prosperity and abundance. Now, health and unity is in the center. All of the other 8 guas have a yin or a yang aspect. Health and unity needs to be the balance of both. So whatever room or hallway or stairway or area of the home is right there in the center, it needs to have a balance of yin and yang. And I explain what this looks and feels like in a home with imagining a handful of marbles. If you were to drop a handful of marbles on a surface, would they roll and scatter everywhere and get really active, or would they plop down onto the comforter or the couch or the soft plush floor carpet? So the yang surfaces are hard and they create faster chi. They're more active, and the softer surfaces create more yin. And so that's a way to determine. So each gua has its own needs, and the center needs a balance of both. And the center represents health and unity of body, mind, spirit for everyone in the home and the family, even those who aren't living at home anymore, and health and unity of the home itself as it sits on the land. So if there's one place in the home that you are going to create an altar to repairing what I consider cultural wounds, and the original wound is always that the land on which we live was torn from its native peoples. This is the place, the center of the home is the place in your home to create an altar to that reparation, that process. So in the center of our home is our living room. We have a bookshelf. On the top of the bookshelf, I have a stack of beautiful books from Indigenous authors on healing and reparation. And then I have a beautiful image created by someone in our priestess community, made from red clay, the red clay in Georgia, of a goddess, of a statue of a beautiful woman. And then above that, a silk painting of the tree of life with all these indigenous cultures, goddesses represented. So for me, that is an altar that represents my own work in the spheres of racial equity and social justice.
I really love that, Melody. I'm just sitting here thinking of all the ways that I can represent that. Like, our health and unity room is right here, and it is it's a living room, it's the center of the house, and I have this piano, which is really just a table because I don't play it. So it's a great place to do that. For now, it's got wedding pictures from my children, but I might move them somewhere and
Yeah.
change that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And so there's lots of little tips that I can share with you about Feng Shui, but I don't want to overwhelm people. But this Bagua is a good guide. And then the second page is actually the affirmations. So if you will scroll down, you can see that what I did when I went through my 5-year course of study is I took for each one of these guas what I call their job description, the intention that they have, that they want to help you create in your lives. And so this is, and the other thing I want you to
And I
know.
will share this document with your permission in the show notes,
Yes,
along with a link to your book, wherever you prefer me to link it, and your website.
Great. Yeah, I would be happy for people to have this. If you
Okay.
go back up to the image of the Bagua, the other thing I want you to know is if you decide, okay, I want to experiment with Feng Shui, but I'm not quite sure, like there's no real pressing need, I'm not in any health issues, my marriage is okay, like I'm not sure where to start. start with Gua number 4, because she is the president of the board. Now, all of them are powerful in their own right, but she is in charge of manifestation, all manifestation. So at the beginning of each year, my husband and I spend between New Year's and the beginning of February talking through our intentions for the last year. How do we do? And just doing a review and visioning our intentions for the coming year. And we make a list for Gua number 4 of all of our intentions. We also have smaller altars in the other 8 Guas that carry our intentions. Like we have a separate health altar in the kitchen on the other side of the wall where that healing cultural wounds altar is, because I really wanted to separate those. And so, we have little altars everywhere.
Yes, I write about I wrote a poem one time called Tiny Altars Everywhere. It's just, yeah.
And that's me. But in the prosperity and abundance Gua, we have a beautiful quote. It's a covenant that we make with the universe, and it's like something you sign and date, but we have a list of all of our intentions for all of the Guas in that one spot. So, yeah.
Yes, and I can speak to how well working a prosperity abundance altar can do in your life. Like, I'm not wording this well. I've had great experience with working my abundance altar.
I have gotten a front row seat on that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to talk a whole lot about it, but yeah, do it. My main abundance altar is actually in the abundance corner of my master bedroom. That's just the best place for it. We've been under construction for a year and a half, and it is what it is. And it has worked beautifully there. So I'm going to stop the screen share now, if that's okay. We good?
Yeah.
So we've been talking for about an hour, and I'm just wondering if there are any final words, any last things that you want to say to sort of tie the bow.
Well, I was going to be offering a Feng Shui certification course where we really dove into the mysteries of each one of the Guas and the mystery of how to activate your land. And instead of offering that this year, my dear marketing guru convinced me that this ought to be the year that I finish my second book, which is halfway done, and it will include, the second half will be Feng Shui. So stay tuned. I will have more, and maybe 2023 will be the year for this Feng Shui certification course.
Fun. I would love to do that. It just sounds like so much fun. It's so interesting. And I've only, brushed the top couple of layers of Feng Shui, but excuse me, I love it. It really works. And, just playing with it has been great. I really appreciate you coming on today, Melody. Thank you so much.
Fun. Yeah.
Okay. So again, this is B with the Be Illuminated podcast and the Be Priestess YouTube channel. Please check out Melody's work at transformingspace.com, and mine is bepriestess.love. And I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm not going to end the meeting, which I sometimes accidentally do and hang up on people. Okay, thanks everybody.